If you think Venezuela and Russia are still major trade partners, think again. The two countries show strong signs of political alliance, but not economic or commercial ones. There are plenty of meetings between high-ranking officials, official statements, and diplomatic visits that boost the appearance of a close relationship. But do you want to know the truth? Russia hasn't invested in Venezuela since 2018. At one point, the flow of money between the two countries totaled over $34 billion. However, Venezuela didn't receive more loans and investments due to its poor economic performance and its difficulty repaying debts. In the oil sector alone, Russia invested and loaned around $19 billion, but the returns fell far short of expectations. By December 2023, Venezuela owed Russia $1.5 billion due to PDVSA, Venezuela's state oil company, defaulting on its obligations. Russia's 5 joint oil ventures in Venezuela have also scaled back production, dropping from 125,000 barrels per day in 2022 to 105,000 in 2024. That same year, bilateral trade between the two countries amounted to just $1 billion, leaving Venezuela with a trade deficit. This represents only a tiny fraction of Russia's total exports to Latin America. The truth is, Russia's key allies in the region are Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Argentina. Projects in Venezuela simply aren't delivering results. The relationship between Russia and Venezuela is driven by political motives. The small trade that still exists is mostly geared toward evading sanctions and building a geopolitical alliance. In the defense sector, even though Russia has stopped selling weapons to Venezuela, there are reports of cooperation agreements in intelligence and counterintelligence, as well as Russian technical and military support for both domestic and international surveillance. At key moments, Russian ships have docked in Venezuelan ports, and Russian troops have marched in Venezuelan military parades, which is described by Venezuela's defense minister as steps to strengthen technical military cooperation between the two nations. Eurofinance Mosnar Bank, a joint Russian-Venezuelan bank with Venezuela holding a 49.9% stake, helped to collect payments for Venezuelan oil through Russian intermediaries and carried out treasury tasks handling Venezuelan state funds. The bank was sanctioned by OFAC in 2019. Still, oil sales continued with payments made in cryptocurrency, which allows large sums of money to move freely without oversight and with minimal traceability. In 2023, Venezuela joined the Mir payment system, a debit and credit card network developed by Russia's central bank as an alternative to Western systems, in response to both Russia and Venezuela being removed from SWIFT. It was announced that 81,000 Mir-enabled payment points would be installed in Venezuela, but there's been no news of the system actually being implemented. In the communications sector, at the end of 2024, Venezuela signed an agreement with the Sputnik news agency to open an office in Caracas and began broadcasting radio programs across the country. On the international stage, Russia continues to support Venezuela, but its statements haven't been enough to prevent sanctions or international backlash. In 2024, it seemed that the Venezuelan government's hopes of joining the BRICS bloc were finally within reach. However, following the July 28th election process, Brazil vetoed Venezuela's entry into the group. Supportive statements from Russia, which hosted the summit, weren't enough to override the veto. Still, Russia continues to show support, endorsing the election, backing Venezuela's BRICS bid, and holding meetings with President Maduro and his officials. These meetings and symbolic gestures have helped Nicolás Maduro to remain in power. But the question remains: will Russia actually help Maduro's government overcome the crisis that has already lasted 10 years with no signs of improvement? If you want to dive deeper into this topic, you can download our full report on our website.